Hello, all my crafty people out there. We have a fun new project this week. If this is your first time to my channel, my name is Stephanie, and I upcycle thrifted items, generally thrifted from my local stores, and sometimes we're making more clothing, sometimes we're making something completely different. So today we're going to be making this. And if you like this kind of content, like, subscribe, follow along, let me know what you think. And let's get going. Again, this is the dress that I made out of 4XLT men's shirt, and I thrifted it for $4.99 at Goodwill. It turned out pretty cute. I've got the darts in it, and it's a great little wear around kind of dress. I'd wear this to the office, no problem. But it was my experiment. I wanted to figure out if first the pattern that I'm going to use would fit. And I recommend one of two things. Either using a pattern to do your shoulders and cut out your armholes, or use a dress or a shirt, something that you already have that you know fits you, that you like the shape of, that you can pin down and mimic the shape of for the cut. So that being said, we're going to use a new look, and it's a 6889. Bought this for 99 cents at the High Blob. They had a whole bunch of them they were getting rid of, I guess overstock or even maybe out of print, I'm not sure. So all I wanted was the top half of this dress to make the top half of my dress. So I traced out my size, or what I was hoping was my size, because that can be kind of tricky, especially if you try to follow the measurements on the envelope. So I traced out the top of the back to the waistline and the top of the front to the waistline. And this is what we're going to use. And of course it's got this little dart in the front right here. This is what we're going to use to trace out the top of our dress. I'm going to be using this shirt. It is a 3XL. Now that means it's going to be a little shorter, but it's a 3XLT, but I did go ahead and measure, just make sure that my pattern will fit here. The trick is you want a piece big enough, a shirt big enough, that when you're cutting the pattern out, you don't run into the seam on your sleeve. So that's the tricky part, and that's why I have to get them pretty large in order to get this to work. So we're going to be using that pattern, and y'all know we're going to use some bias tape to do the sleeves. So let's get going. Okay, everybody, the first thing we need to do with this shirt is prep it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the pocket off, because the pocket will be inside that cut line for the armhole. So we're going to have to take the pocket off. Now we can reapply it if we want to. I'm not sure if I'm going to need to, because I'm going to put interior pockets, and I'm probably going to use the sleeves to do that, the fabric from the sleeves. And so first thing to do after taking the pocket off, of course, is to run up this side and then take the sleeve off completely, like we've done for many projects. Cutting the sleeves off and down the sides gives it this really nice flat surface to work with, which is great. It's just like working more so with a flat piece of fabric than all of this curves and stuff like that. So what I did is I have used my little quilt clips to kind of clip the edges of the armholes, because I know that those should line as well as the button placket over here. So this is all laid out flat. This is the front of the shirt, and I've kind of folded it, but this is the back of the shirt. And I know that my natural line is about right here where it folds. Where when you put it on a hanger, this is what would be on the hanger, and this would be coming to the front. So we're going to take our pattern, and this is the front. Okay, and this is the armhole, so this has to go here. So I'm going to be turning it sort of upside down. Backwards for this side. And what we're trying to do is line it up with the button placket, which is going to act as our fold. Now this particular pattern isn't cut on a fold actually. It just happens that I'm using it this way to make the shape at the top. And the other option you have, if you don't want to use a pattern, you can use something you've already got. If you've got a dress or a blouse or a sleeveless blouse or something that you like the shape of and you know fits you well, pin it down. Pin it down as your sample. You can even pin it over the shirt and make that work too. So just whatever you've got available to you, it does not have to be a pattern. I just happen to have a pattern. Like I said, I really wasn't even thinking about this until I don't know, started cutting it up and thought, well, you know what? That one I bought the other day might work. So I'm going to overlap this to the point where it would be the fold over the hanger. I'm going to make sure that I don't get involved over here in this seam. It's very close on this one, and I have to be very careful and make sure I've got everything pulled tight so I don't get involved in that seam. I can cut all the way up to that seam. I just don't want to cut into that seam because it's just too thick. I'm going to take my little clip off there. So I know it's going to fit this way. And this is a little play area. You can play a little here because you got to remember this would have a seam on it too. So you can have it overlap just a little bit over the edge. You know, it's no problem. This pattern was, the new look patterns are kind of tricky in figuring out what your size is. I read something last night that said that you should use your upper measurement, the measurement you take right above your bust. And that's what I did to gauge which size to cut. Otherwise, I would have been cutting a size that was way too massive. So anyway, and then the other thing you got to think about if you're using a pattern is you got to take up that 5/8 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to have to overlap my two pieces here at the shoulder by 5/8 inch, which is not a problem. It's super easy to do, but I just want to make sure that when I do so, once again, I do not get into this seam. So I'm going to have to kind of make sure all of my fabric is as flat as possible and I'm not getting into that shoulder seam. And I'm just pinning around, trying to get the armhole in good shape. And then I'm pinning down to where I have stopped at the waistline. Because what I had to do earlier was just kind of take my ruler. Okay, so now you can see I've got it pinned on. Here's the collar. I've folded the entire shirt in half. And I've got the back pinned on and the front pinned on. Now, the tricky part, that's not tricky, but the part you kind of make up is this cut right here. I'm going to take my good old handy dandy I love you ruler. I do love this ruler. And I'm going to cut straight. Well, I'm going to cut at the same angle this is, and I'm not cutting I'm not cutting as wide as I did last time. So I'm going to cut about here. So I'm just going to cut up. And I'm just cutting up to the pattern, because that way I can complete it from the pattern on. So I will cut the rest of that. I'm just going to cut it with my scissors, and we'll cut around. And this is the dart. So I'm just going to cut it off like that. And that's that dart that we'll have to draw in. It's not actually something you have to draw in, because if you can get to this point, if you draw in this point and you pinch it, it's the exact fold. Just, it works. Trust me. You'll see. It's not a bad dart. I've had bad darts. That's not a bad dart. So now we're just going to fold it over a little bit, and I'm going to worry about cutting the rest of the armhole once I get the length cut. All right, again, making sure our ends are meeting here, or at least as best we can. Let's make sure we line it up on the grid a little bit, so we're not just cutting willy-nilly. And once again, I'm going to take this and I'm going to go from where the pattern ends to the end of the shirt. Now, like I said earlier, if you wanted to use the whole pattern, you could. You could cut it right from the pattern all the way down. I think you'd probably have enough fabric in one of these really large shirts, depending on what size you needed to cut, you know. I have to be careful. I have to get the big ones. All right. Now all we've got left is to cut our armhole. All right. I hope everybody can see that, and hope everybody understands where I went with this. Now I'm going to cut the armhole, and the rest of it's fairly quick. This shoulder part is a little thick, obviously. We've got to push our pin in, or we're going to try and cut the head off. Let's see, I come from this side a little bit. Where did I leave off? There we go. All right, there is our armhole, and here is our other part of our underarm. And there we go. Now we can take our pattern off. Let's draw that dart. This is pretty thin paper, so if I draw on top of it, it's pretty good to catch through the paper. Voila. Let's just turn it over real quick. It looks like we actually went through. So we are good on our dots. And then all we want to do for that dart is just maybe draw it through. And like I said, this point is the dart. This is water soluble. It will come off in the wash. But if you've got a child's marker that's water soluble, apparently that works too. And right there. All right, now our darts are drawn. Okay, we're going to put in a dart. And what we're doing is we're folding down that line. Now, I've marked it on the right side of the fabric. Probably be better to mark it on the wrong side, but this fabric, I can see the blue line, so I'm fortunate. And when we fold it together, the two blue lines should meet down here, and then you have this corner. This one is pretty easy dart to run. You can put a pin in it at the top if you want, or pin it all the way, whatever makes you comfortable. This one's pretty well pressed together, so I'm not too worried about it. I just got to make sure I follow my line. The two sleeves, and I just pressed them so they're nice and flat. And I found this pattern. just so I'd know I had at least some good dimensions on it, this is a McCall's 2101. It's an old pattern. I'm sure if it's not in print, there's plenty out there that are like it. It's just a pair of shorts / pants, that kind of thing. And it happened to have a pocket in it. So we're going to use this pocket for our pocket in our dress. One thing I need to point out, after we cut these pockets out, I had to think about it, or after I cut these pockets out. This pocket in this pattern would be caught in the waistline casing, and that would cover the top. That's not going to happen with this particular design. We're not going to have anything catching the top of it. So we don't really need it to be pointed like this. We're going to go around the whole pocket. So I'm going to take from this corner, and I'm just going to cut more of a rounded shape into the pocket. What we're going to need to do, I've got this turned right sides out. So there's my dart. This is right sides out. And what I did is I went over to measure this dress that I'm wearing, which is the exact same thing as what I'm making. And I measured how far down from the under my arm, from under my arm here, that I wanted to come down to put the pocket in. And it was 11 inches. I measured it several times. So, that being said, I'm trying to line this up so you want it to be even right here at the arm. And then you're not worried about the bottom, because see, it's going to be a little uneven. And that's okay. It's because of this dart, but that's okay, because we're gonna, when we run down the side, we're gonna make a little split there, so it'll still look cute. So now we've got to take two of these pockets, and what you do is you sew them to the right side of the dress first. So let's go 11 inches down. This is a 12-inch ruler. So we're going to go, well, it's easier to do it this way. This one's got a weird ½ inch on the end of it. So we're going to take our two pockets, separate them. I've got dust all over these. And we're going to put them right here. They must have been washed with something crazy, because I've got cat hair, all kinds of craziness on them. So we're going to put them right on the right side. And if this had a right and wrong side, you would be putting them right side together. And we're going to sew them on here. That looks like it might be a ½ inch. So we're going to just sew a ½ inch down this side, and we'll also put one on the other side in the same location. So it'll be like this on this side. So we're putting them 11 inches down from the armhole and sewing them right sides together from the right side, 1/2 inch down. It's kind of like we're basting them on. But when we're finished putting them on, I'll take this one out from under here, what will happen is you'll turn it out like this. And when you sew down the side of the dress, you'll just include it as part of your sew down. And that will make sure that you encase the pocket and it's encased inside the dress. This stuff is a little fray. So I'm going to run a serge line down both these sides. With the pockets the way they are, towards the front, and that way when I sew a seam down the sides here, I don't have to worry about them fraying. I don't have to do a double seam or anything like that. So I'm just going to put a serge line down each of the sides. Now the serge line that I put down the sides is going to do two things. One, it's going to keep it from fraying. And two, when we sew it together down here and we want to turn in a little bit to do kind of like a split on either side, it again will keep it from fraying, and it'll be nice and clean as far as the little split at the bottom. So it's a helpful thing. So let's go. All right, the next thing we need to do, we need to turn it right sides together because we're going to sew the side seams, but we need to determine how far down we want to sew the side seams and what we want to leave for a little split down there. So let's put our top seam together, the one right under the arm, and just pull it nice and straight. Let's see, we'll put the pockets inside so they won't be in my way. There we go. So we can see that we're going to have, what is that, about 1.5 inches left at the bottom on one side, on the back side, which is fine. But I thought maybe we would leave a little split, and the split in the front from the bottom button is, I can't use a ruler, not today apparently, is a little over 5.5 inches long. So if we do a split over here, let's just say for giggles, we do it maybe 4 inches. 4 inches from the longest, that would only put it about 2 inches, or well, a little bit more than 2 inches into this one. So let's pin that. Let's see, 4 inches here. And then we'll pin it on the other side so we'll know where we want to stop our little split. Okay, again, we're going to start at the armhole up here, and we're going to make sure those are lined up, and we're going to go down the side, go around our pocket to include it, and go down to the end up to that little pin so we don't go too far and leave our little ones. We can leave a little split in the side. Okay, now to put the little V in, we stopped where I had it pinned, 4 inches from the end of the longest side. What we're going to do is we're just going to tuck in that serged part towards the inside, the wrong side, and we're just going to stitch down that that side, and we'll come back over and we'll stitch over this, over that little spot where it's joined, and then we'll stitch down the other side. Okay, the only thing we've got left to do, since we've sewn down the sides, is add our bias tape, and we're going to use this to encase the armhole. And y'all have seen me do bias tape a few times if you've watched my previous videos. If not, this is probably one of the handiest tools I've been utilizing for a while. It is single fold bias tape, but single fold means it's folded over from both sides towards the middle, like that, you see. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up one side of it, and we're going to put a little fold in it, like so. Can you see? It's kind of hard to see. And then we're going to pin it. I start under the armhole, and I'm going to probably open that seam up just to make it less bulky. I'm going to put it right over the seam. Now this is the right side of the dress, and I'm pinning the bias tape directly to the top edge. So I'm going to put a little pin in this first stitch here, like that. And all I'm going to do is sew in this little crease, this fold that was already there, you know, that was part of the way the bias tape was folded. And I'm going to go all the way around the arm. And then when I get here, I'll pull the last bit of it a little over this fold and cut it. And then we're going to turn it inside to the inside and stitch it down, and that will create the casing and a clean armhole. Bias tape's very stretchy because it is, quote, on the bias, so the it pulls real easy and it folds to curves real easy. Okay, I have the bias tape sewn onto the right side of the dress. So now we're just going to take it and we're going to fold it on the inside. And actually it'll be easier if I turn it inside out, obviously. There we go. Woo! All right, now we're going to fold it to the inside like that. And we're just going to sew it right down the edge of the bias tape and close it down over this seam. Okay, everybody, this is what the dress turned out looking like. It's got pockets. I left it open from the bottom button and from the second to top button. The darts are good, but I may have gone too deep. I maybe make them a little more shallow, and I probably would have made the pockets a little higher for my short self. But all in all, the process is sound, and I would highly recommend y'all trying this project out. They are great little summer dresses, and like I said, I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you did, like, subscribe, follow along, and let me know what you think, and I'll catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.